The world of Nirn and beyond is rich with captivating yet more often than not unexplained phenomenons. From a little girl in a small village having visions of the leader of the Greybeards and said leader's unnaturally battered appearance given his species, to an uninhabited and undead-infested house in the gem of Old Calovia, and a Mer with a questionable race donning an amulet he shouldn't be able to wear, to name a few, the lore written within the Elder Scrolls is frequently as enigmatic as these supposedly Adric artifacts themselves. And speaking of Adra, there are a few mysterious dragons in Skyrim whose locations of choice and backgrounds are obscured. One we have already covered in the past is Volthuriol, Fal Kruzig Dova found in Fal Zagdumdin, better known to us as Blackreach. Today, our focus are going to be the two revered dragons that we come face to face with atop the frozen waters of the lake in the Forgotten Vale. Voslaarum and Naaslaarum are their names, and they are most baffling twin dragons with little to no known lore to shed some light on their glistening scales. Drem Yol Lok, Valbo, and welcome to my study in my home leaf rest in Riverwood, Skyrim. Here today we're going to turn our attention to Voslaarum and Naaslaarum, a pair of Dovahzul who have made numerous Dovahkinne, including myself, raise an eyebrow in wonderment. Since all information on this duo is as scarce as the magically charged material Ethereum, most of our discussion today is going to consist of speculations based on observation and a sprinkle of imagination, as well as on the lore written within the Elder Scrolls, of course. Firstly, we will see what little is known of these twins. Afterwards, we shall ponder on their titles and namely, revered, the unique word wall near where they are situated, what exactly classifies them as twins given their species, as well as their curious location. Nus ganog van vak, enough prattling. Without further ado, let us focus on the inked pieces of parchment where I have documented my research. Let us begin. Mora now Minda. We shall commence with the extremely scarce information we have about these two unique revered Dovahzul. Voslaarum's name translates to claw water twin from Dovahzul, while Naaslaarum stands for tooth water twin. The dragons reside beneath the frozen lake in the Forgotten Vale, although they cannot be found beneath the ice before we set foot on it. Falzemahe, the brothers spawn only then. As established by their monikers as well as affirmed knowledge, they are twins. And this is the only confirmed lore we have at our disposal regarding Voslaarum and Naaslaarum. No books or records, ancient and modern alike, even allude to their existence, including Brother Matnan's Atlas of Dragons, written in the Second Era, and we are left unaware as to why they reside in this isolated snow elven sanctuary dedicated to Auriel. But before we delve into any of this, let us first briefly discuss their titles and namely revered, them residing underwater and willingly plunging back into it during combat, as well as attempt to unravel how and why these two dragons happen to be twins. Voslaarum's and Naaslaarum's status can be interpreted as having been venerated by their fellow Dovahzul and or Jor, mortals, as an adjective describing their subspecies or both. By being dragons and purportedly having lived for a very long while, it would make sense that they would have been revered by the Atmorans as Dovahzul, dragon gods, and being well known and respected among their peers is also rather likely. In case they were not part of the dragon cult, since many Dovahzul followed their own path and were not involved with it or with Alduin himself, they could have still been deeply respected by both their brethren and mortals, perhaps even snow elves, but more on that later. It is just as, if not more, plausible that their title is used to describe their appearance and behavior, just as blood dragons are all Graak-slen, green-skinned, and exhibit particularly unquenchable bloodlust. Frost Dovahzul all possess distinctive and, in my opinion, absolutely stunning white and blue scales and specialized Skofo Arkis in frost and ice, and serpentine dragons have a unique underbite and can only be uncovered on the Isle of Solstheim. Just so, Voslaarum and Naaslaarum share an appearance with other revered Dovahzul, and while we cannot confirm this for certain, I suspect their affinity for bodies of water is not singular to the twins. Some dove, among which there are references of river subspecies, are known to exhibit semi-aquatic behavior, similarly to the twins in question. Here is a sentence from Pocket Guide to the Empire, 1st edition Cyrodiil, written by the Imperial Geographic Society relevant to our current research. Opening a bracket, this work is not found in any of the games but was a paper edition in the Elder Scrolls Adventures Volume R, the game manual for the Elder Scrolls Redguard. However, it is widely considered canon. There are several more improved editions that came with games post-Redguard as well. Make of it what you will, closing the bracket. I quote, "The river mouth is tainted red from the thinly soil of the shore, and river dragons rust their hides in its waters." Whether we consider this information trustworthy or not, revered dragons' appearance do hint at aquatic affinity. Their faces do resemble aquatic and semi-aquatic features, with their frog-like eyes and traits that resemble fins. That is all to be said about their title and water-loving behavior. Now let us ponder on what exactly classifies them as twins and explore an unlikely but nonetheless not entirely impossible theory. According to Thorhall Bjorik's work There Be Dragons, dove are not born or hatched and they do not mate or breed. For the sake of observing from every angle, let us toy with the idea that this researcher and the majority of scholars are wrong in their ruminations and that dove can in fact reproduce. Thus, Voslaarum and Naaslaarum could have possibly come from the same egg or have been two separate identical eggs whose shells broke simultaneously, which would make them twins. While we do not come across any female dragons in Skyrim, there is a mention of a possible she-dova in the 11th volume of the King Edward saga, written by an anonymous author. Although the books are historic fiction, therefore we must accept this with a huge grain of salt, especially considering the established lore about dragonkind. This second dragon was smaller than Akatosh and seemed to be a female, although characteristically Akatosh had just introduced the dragon as Debijan. In the same series, there is also a reference to dragons breeding. Dragons live far, far longer than even elves and in consequence breed even more slowly. This fictive version of Akatosh also mentions the existence of what he seemingly hesitantly refers to as a dragon queen. Perhaps so, but I approached our queen with this suggestion more so because it seemed clear to me that as a race we had fallen into a stasis and we needed to break this shell in order to invigorate ourselves. She didn't quite agree with me, but perhaps because of my reputation, she told me to go ahead and make this attempt. And the supposed queen dragon character in the written expression makes an appearance at the end of the 12th and final volume of King Edward. Akatosh's head came up and he too scanned the sky. Tension grew in him and one by one the companions rose, watching as the distant dot grew nearer and resolved itself into the largest dragon they'd seen yet. "Matilda!" Akatosh exclaimed. "She deigns to bestow her presence on us." His wings lifted and unfurled, and the companions broke and ran for cover as he took flight. The two dragons wheeled through the sky, spouting great gouts of flame against the purpling sky. Nonetheless, as I said previously, these fantastic volumes, whose real-life author is Marilyn Wasserman, are fictive and not to be taken at face value. The author herself, who was a beta tester for the Elder Scrolls 2, states that she wrote them before there was even any Daggerfall to test, and the written expression should not be considered official lore. Many braan bovitaan fellow adventurers interpret the texts as fable-like. Regardless of how we choose to interpret King Edward, those excerpts were worth sharing. We will present more possible evidence of Voslaarum and Naaslaarum having been hatched from the same egg or having hatched from two identical eggs at the same time. In the Elder Scrolls Online, there is an instance of a luminary of magic taking on the form of a female dragon. Very briefly, luminaries of magic are extremely enigmatic immortal beings of pure magic that have a powerful connection to Magnus himself, who is the god of magic, often also believed to be Lunimar, magic itself on Nirn. Even the luminaries themselves do not know exactly what they are, which once more weakens this already rather fallible speculation. There are also concepts of Rekdovahe, she-dragons called Jills, that have varied species similarly to drakes or jacks, the male dragons we come face to face with in Skyrim, and are meant to be much stronger than the opposite sex. Their purpose is to repair the world during dragon breaks, which is why they are also referred to as minute menders due to healing the currents of time. Nonetheless, as much as I adore this concept, it is only that, a concept. None of this made it into any of the games, although the idea's existence does give us more to grasp at while looking at this particular angle of this investigation. The final link to this theory are the dragon links we uncovered during our journeys across the provinces of Cairo as the Emperor's agent. They are native to the Iliac Bay and the Rodgarian Mountains, the latter area having been one of the dragon cult's holds in the Merethic era. These small reptilians are highly intelligent, wise, and magically inclined beings who are known to reproduce by laying eggs and have their own language labeled as Dragonish that we can learn by trainers in the Mages Guild, the Akatosh Chantry, and the Temple of Kinnereth. The fact that sanctuaries related to the latter two deities have ones who teach their tongue, as well as their previously mentioned qualities and arcane affinity, could possibly connect these dragon links to Dove. Furthermore, if we choose to click the in-depth article on the Dragonish language in the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, we will find ourselves on a page that speaks exclusively about Dovahzul. I should note, however, that on this very same page, it is clarified that it is ultimately unknown if Dragonish has any connection to the language of actual dragons. It does feel that the original ideas for the Vahe at the dawn of the Elder Scrolls universe were different to the final result in many ways, even if much of the lore concerning them from Arena and Daggerfall did remain the same. Nonetheless, in spite of scholars from the earlier eras theorizing dragon links were possibly the offspring of or otherwise closely related to the great worms when they were still believed to be mere legends by many, fourth-era studies rebuke all of this, stating that these creatures are more closely connected to lizards and have no evident relation to the Vahe, with many before that time considering dragons not being capable of reproduction to be common knowledge. Another counter-argument to this assumption is all that is confirmed regarding dragons, including our personal observations during our stories as Dovahkinne. Dovahe are eternal, unchanging, ageless, with Paarthurnax being a special case if he has indeed aged and not merely been injured, unyielding, and everlasting. All of these qualities do make the possibility of traditional reproduction rather low. In spite of this, with how vast, rich, and often deliberately ambiguous the lore written within the Elder Scrolls is, anything is contingent. The much more likely and concrete explanation behind Voslaarum and Naaslaarum being twins, which is clearly an integral part of their identities, seen as the very word twin, is in their names, is that they came into existence at the exact same time. Nobody truly knows how Dove come to be, only that it purportedly happened in the Dawn era or the beginning of time, Agdarnist Bogma los Akatosh. The most likely explanation behind these two being twins is that Akka created them as a pair. Another possibility is that they emerged from two shards of time that shattered simultaneously, or a single piece that split in two during a dragon break. When this cosmic phenomenon occurs, Tid Bo Volbural, time flows in a non-linear manner due to Akatosh losing his control over its currents. This allows entirely opposing events to happen at the same time. Dova Kren Koros at the end of every single Elder Scrolls game, making each player decision canon. Another detail worth noting is that since Akka is the dragon god of time, its shards are considered fragments of him himself, and just so, Dove are believed to be pieces of Akatosh by some. It is unknown if dragons can come into existence during such an event, but in spite of always having been and being, some Dovahe are more powerful than others, just as some are younger than others. Well, there have been at least 5 large dragon breaks before the Fourth Era, including the Middle Dawn caused by the Marukati Selectives, and they didn't result in dragons descending into Mandas. That does not necessarily mean none were born, quote unquote. They are aged beings, therefore the realm of Aetherius would be available to them, and I would argue that they would likely manifest there to begin with. But I shan't get too carried away. In conclusion, the most plausible explanation behind Voslaarum and Naaslaarum being twins is that they came into existence at the same time, not through conventional reproductive means, but through divine intervention and or a dragon break, which is usually caused by mortals meddling with divine forces. Nu mumoranau num sic vunt. Our focus shifts to the unique word wall found in close proximity to the twins. It not only has a distinctive appearance different to that of the rest of these stone cairns, but it also has a single rotmulag, word of power, etched into it instead of a full scripture. All other walls of power we come across in Skyrim and Solstheim are either commemorations of individuals, humanoid or animal alike, or share the wisdom of one mysterious Hoar Father. I have in-depth investigations on both the word walls and Finfodi's Bormahi identity, therefore we will not go into either in length. In my research on the former, I speculate that the word of the Drain Vitality Shout was carved by either Voslaarum or Naaslaarum. Perhaps they wished to meditate on it in order to strengthen the power of their Thu'um, similarly to how Pagthugnak aids us in making ours more formidable. While the only Dova who is known to engage in meditation is Nax, he focuses on suppressing his naturally dominant nature. It is not far-fetched to assume that the rest of his kind would utilize this technique in order to gain more strength. Given how intelligent and studious Dove are, I would not put meditation for the purpose of becoming more formidable past them at all. Another possibility is that the snow elves themselves raised the stone cairn and etched the Drain Vitality Rotmulag. There is no concrete evidence that the ancient Falmer had any kind of relation to the Vahe, let alone the dragon cult, whose main branch was in Atmora and later Atmoran populated Skyrim. However, they were devoted worshippers of Auriel as a whole. Considering that dragons are his offspring in a manner of speaking, it does make sense they would revere them in their own right, which would be another way to explain the twins' titles, aside from them being a way to set them apart from their brethren as a subspecies. I definitely do not believe the snow elves would have viewed them as gods the way the Atmorans did, but it is possible they treated them with deep respect, for their incredible arcane affinity as well. The Falmer were the most magically inclined race of Mer before their demise, even more so than the Altmar. Another possibility is that Voslaarum and Naaslaarum are simply guarding the word wall. In the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, Dovahe are described as Valokke, guardians of these stone structures, likely having been given this task by Alduin in order to prevent the Dova keen from expanding his or her arsenal of shouts and becoming even more of a threat to their kind. Nonetheless, the chances of the Dragonborn ever setting foot in the Vale are realistically very slim. It is such a well-hidden location with an extremely perilous path leading to it that I find this case scenario rather odd. Not to mention that this is the singular word wall there. Yes, Rotmulagi Losmul. Its word of power is a part of a rather dangerous shout, but it seems a little far-fetched. Furthermore, we are unaware if Voslaarum and Naaslaarum were even in any way related and loyal to Alduin, and or if he raised them from the dead in case they were slain. Having said that, if they are two of Falai Naki Dovahe, the World Eater's dragons, it would make sense he would send them to guard a word wall, in case he has done so with the rest of his subordinates. And this brings us to the question behind Voslaarum and Naaslaarum's whereabouts. The first reason for them to choose to stay in the Vale is exactly that they were slain at some point by the Falmer and then raised by the World Eater. Since nobody except for Auriel's devotees knew of the Vale's existence in later years, according to Gelebor, it would not have been the Nords or the Akaviri that would have taken the twins' lives. That is, if they did perish in the Vale at all. Voslaarum and Naaslaarum could have been felled elsewhere, brought back, and then ordered by Alduin to go to Auriel's chantry and guard the word wall, possibly even the entire place itself. It could become a rather appealing cult for the empire Alduin is rebuilding from the ground up after all. And in case they survived until the 4th era, similarly to Mirmulnir and Parthurnax, and he found their whereabouts, his command still stood. Now on to the next possibility. Voslaarum and Naaslaarum chose the Forgotten Vale specifically to avoid Alduin and those loyal to him and the subsequent Dragon War. Or they moved there after the Dragon War broke out in order to escape it. In relation to the first claim, not all Dovahe were allegiant to him. Many followed their own path. And what better place to stay in than a nearly uninhabited, even back when there were more Auriel worshippers in the Vale, snow-strewn and rich in water locale, full of one-of-a-kind flora and fauna and strongly connected to their father. The place is extremely appealing to Lokar Klag Lokal, sky and water-loving dragons, and the fact that it is soaked with magics, given the Falmer's incredibly strong affinity for the arcane, and the Time Dragon's energies would be a huge bonus. If we take this a step further, we could even suggest that Voslaarum and Naaslaarum made a deal with the Snow Elves, to live there as they liked in return for guarding the Vale from unwanted guests. Here I will remind of Nafalar and his own arrangement with Tiber Septim. Parthurnax pitied men and betrayed Oxema Ak Lok, his brother and his kind, by giving them the means to overthrow their dragon overlords, and namely the Thu'um. I also toy with the idea that Vulthuriol struck a deal with the Dwemer in my research on why he is in Blackreach. But I digress. Given that we know Dove can and do side with Jor, it is not far-fetched to come to this conclusion regarding these enigmatic twins. But what if they did not merely choose to ally themselves with the Falmer, but were bound to the Vale by a divine force? The third and final speculation I have come up with regarding these two is that they were specifically ordered, possibly even created by Auriel for the purpose to both guard his sanctuary and serve as a test for pilgrims. While Dove always referred to their father as either Akatosh or Bormahu, which literally means our father in Dovahzul, it is widely accepted that Auriel is the elven aspect of the dragon god of time. His role and title are exactly the same. While some scholars consider Akatosh to be a combination of Shor and Auriel, created by Alessia as she merged the pantheons of Mer and Man together to create the Cyrodiilic faith, this would still make the elven time dragon an aspect of Akatosh. I digress. The twins could possibly be an obstacle on the way to reaching the inner sanctum. The Shrine of Resolution is directly above the lake, and the twins do fly above it after they emerge from the frigid waters. Furthermore, here is what the 4th volume of the Unknown Books found in the Vale translates to. Touching the Sky by Parmian Saldor. Many of the most dedicated snow elves once committed themselves to a tireless journey through the chantry to the inner sanctum. They carried with them the paramount desire to become one with their god, Auriel. Though all set out with the determination to prove their worth, few were prepared for the trials that lay ahead. For the path to Auriel was not without its tribulations. The pilgrims struggled not only against the natural elements of the treacherous Vale, but with a myriad of tests upon their faith and loyalty. It is told that many simply could not continue on the path for long before turning back. Some argue that the rebuke they endured upon their return was crueler than any punishment that may have lay ahead of them along the path. In their failed attempt, they were forced to live in the shadow of those who did continue on to achieve the great glory and honor of ascension into the light. Forever after, their faith and loyalty in Oriel would be scrutinized and their remaining days filled with shame and regret. Tales of those who reach the inner sanctum are not without their share of woes. It is said upon their arrival that many were mere shells of the person they had once been. Some were quite mad from sleeplessness and starved to the point of frailty. By the end of their journey, the marvel that they had strength yet to carry their vessel and ascend the stairs of the temple was the last true testament of their loyalty. Regardless of each individual's tale, the final words remain eerily similar. It is said that every pilgrim ascended bathed in light, a look of relief and contentment on their face. According to Parmion Saldor, the path to Auriel's inner sanctum was extremely testing and turbulent. Those who would give up and return would suffer punishments worse than the trials they would face should they have opted to continue their journey. What if one of these tribulations were Voslaarum and Naaslaarum, even during the time of the ancient Falmer? In spite of their characters and personal aims, Dove are still Akkas, or in this case Auriel Likire, Auriel's children, and it makes sense that they would not willingly go against his wishes and/or commands under ordinary circumstances. Furthermore, the nature of the word of power etched into the dark stones of its wall, one from the Drain Vitality Shout, does fit with this quite well. From the book Touching the Sky, we learn that even those who successfully finished their journey to the temple were often, and I quote, shells of the person they had once been. What if Voslaarum and Naaslaarum were and are meant to subtly drain the pilgrim's vitality, which is definitely something Dovahzul can do given their incredible arcane affinity and control of their voice, to test them and see which would still push forward, even physically and mentally weakened? Wolos dag quariv do Auriel Kogan. I am relying on rather vague links and a lot of imagination here. Nonetheless, this is not improbable when one looks deeper. This would make the twins intimately connected to this isolated location and entirely independent of Alduin and the dragon cult. Nonetheless, if these dragons were meant to be a test, why does Gelebor not inform us of their presence beneath the lake, and how come our own vitality isn't systematically drained, similarly to how Molokai sucks us dry of our magicka when we are in Bromjonar or Labyrinthian as soon as he senses our presence? From what we experience, it appears that even Gelebor is unaware of Voslaarum and Naaslaarum's presence in the Vale, otherwise he would have certainly mentioned them. However, him being uninformed could be interpreted as deliberate on Auriel's part, especially if this particular test is meant to be subtle. And perhaps they could not drain us and Serana of our respective life forces due to our status as Dovahzul and because she is a vampire. There is really nothing more to add to this speculation. While it relies heavily on imagination, I believe it would add depth to the twins as well as Auriel's presence in the Forgotten Vale. And with this, today's research has come to an end. Voslaarum and Naaslaarum are as obscure as the enchanted location they call Neist Hofkin, their home. How these elusive dragons happen to be twins, what the unique Wordwall's relation is to them, and why they reside in the Forgotten Vale are all questions we can merely speculate on without hoping to receive anything set in stone. Nonetheless, this is what we do in my study, and it is always an utmost honor and pleasure to dive deeply into lesser known and discussed topics connected to the lore written within the Elder Scrolls. For this particular investigation, I believe everything I proposed regarding Vos and Naas has its strengths and weaknesses, and I cannot choose which interpretation I get behind most firmly. What about you? Which of these speculations do you find to be the most plausible? Or perhaps you have your own to share. If you do, please do not hesitate to tell me. I always adore exchanging thoughts and knowledge with you, Difadonne. Hakun Slat Kogan, thank you all for your support as always. I look forward to spending time with you again, but until then, Lok Thu'um. Un stid voskin marald van di fadonne.